Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. It's kind of a slow news week because we're right in the thick of the 4th of July holiday weekend here in the United States, but I have two stories for you today. Actually, that were requested by a number of you. So the first one is talking about the Pacific Rim mega ticket, or whatever they're calling it. It's only in Canada this time, and as you might recall, we talked about what was going on with World War Z and their mega ticket. But this is interesting. The World War Z ticket was $50, and they included the stuff like the poster, an advanced screening, commemorative 3D glasses, a poster, a digital download of the film when it became available for download, and also a small popcorn. But this ticket in Canada for Pacific Rim is just $20. Which, by the way, I think is funny because here in the United States, at least in New York City, if you were to see Pacific Rim in IMAX 3D, it would be more than $20. I think it's around $22 now or something like that. So I think that's funny. But in Canada, you can see Pacific Rim for $20, just regular size, I'm imagining, with no 3D. But you would get just the digital download when it becomes available, which would be a little bit before when it comes out on DVD apparently. And also they're saying you're going to get some extras, but no discussion of when you'll get those extras. It doesn't really make it clear if you can get them right away with your ticket purchase or if they'll become available when you get that download. As I said with the World War Z ticket, what they're offering to me is not worth the extra money. I want the better theater going experience. I want a cleaner theater, I want to have a reserved seat, and I want to make sure that no one's going to talk. I can't tell you, I mean, later today I have my review of The Lone Ranger coming up, my own personal review, but I can't tell you how happy it made me that nobody talked during the movie when I saw The Lone Ranger. I mean, like, I was holding my breath, and it's kind of sad that that was like a big deal for me, and that I had to be worried about it so much. I mean, that just really sucks. I mean, because when I went to see, by the way, I went to see White House Down, I had a horrible experience, one of the worst ever, more than the drunk girls during, Die Hard, A Good Day to Die Hard. These people were taking photos of themselves in the theater. They were constantly on their phone. Someone in front of me went and got security, but these people had left. Everyone thought they had just left, so thank goodness. But then about 15 minutes later, they came back with their snacks. It was just horrible. I mean, I don't know if I'm ever going to go to that theater again. It was just so bad. So Hollywood, stop offering meaningless crap for extra money, and why don't you actually just take the time to make the movie-going experience not a hellish one. So that's how I feel about the Pacific Rim ticket. I think that I like this idea of a VIP movie-going experience, but I think that Hollywood is greatly overvaluing a digital download. It's not that awesome, Hollywood. The second story, it's an interesting one. It's about the Butler, and you might have seen these headlines. It's a very industry-centric story. So get ready for some nitty-gritty. But basically, Kevin Tsujihara, not important to him to make friends in Hollywood, apparently. First he kind of like froze out Jeff Robinov, and he totally redid the structure over at Warner Brothers, and he doesn't care that he's losing Legendary Pictures, apparently, even though Legendary supplies almost the entire Warner Brothers slate, from 42 to the DC movies to Pacific Rim, and Jack the Giant Slayer. They just make everything for Warner Brothers, so it's crazy that they're like, whatever, go away, we'll just do our own thing. And apparently also, they like to go and mess around with other movies, because basically the story is that Warner Brothers sent a cease and desist to the Weinstein Company saying, you can't use the title The Butler because there's like this short silent film we made like 1916 or 1917. It's called The Butler, and audiences will be confused, so you have to call it something else. And obviously The Butler there's already been, well, we were doing an audience reaction video, there's already a giant standee for The Butler at the movie theaters. They're already promoting the film with that title. They've done a lot of groundwork already. And to have to come up with something I think is going to really hurt the movie Oscar, potentially could hurt it for its Oscar chances. It just seems so petty of Warner Brothers to do this, especially when word is that there was like a problem the other way where they were talking to the Weinstein Company. I forget what the film was, but there was another title contention, and the Weinstein Company did Warner Brothers a solid. So they're kind of like confused that now that Warner Brothers would turn around and just be like, no, so Weinstein Company's hired a major lawyer, David Boies. He's a huge litigator. He's worked on some big cases for political cases, and now apparently he's coming into the Hollywood arena. And also, Lee Daniels, the filmmaker, wrote an open letter to Kevin Tsujihara saying, please come see the film, see how important it is, and I implore you not to cripple the film over this kind of legal matter over a movie that came out like 100 years ago. But apparently Warner Brothers is just not blinking. And as I said, I think the oddest thing about this is that, I don't understand the kind of impression Kevin Tsujihara is trying to make coming in to the industry. He came from he's the only person who was up for the job who hadn't had any experience in content creation. He's really, he really is a left field choice. And to come in here and just with such an iron fist and really not seem to care about making any friends before he even has any results to kind of back this behavior up, I find it very confounding. As for The Butler, I have to say I'm not hearing great things about it. So I don't know how much this is going to really come into play at the end of the day. Where it is, it's an overcrowded film, kind of like the behind-the-scenes whispers I'm hearing. I actually know some people who are familiar with the way it's coming together, and they said that it aims high, but there's just too much going on in the movie. And Lee Daniels, I liked Paperboy a lot, but I think as a film, and of course Precious won Oscars, but I think that's because it was new and it was very raw. But I think Lee Daniels, that's actually also a downside for him as a filmmaker. I think he's not a very disciplined filmmaker. And The Butler, I think, is a kind of story, kind of sweeping historical period piece that needs kind of a structured director. So I don't know, but this is kind of like, it's very petty, it's very silly, and it's the second kind of petty, silly story to come from Kevin Tsujihara. So who knows what's going on here. So those are the two stories today. Then the next one kind of plays into this because I got a question from David Wallace. Thanks. It's very nice everyone's adding their names now. It's cool because not only, as I said, is it easier for me to remember and for your question to stand out, but I feel like I'm getting to know you even better. So that's really nice. But David Wallace says, his question was, what do you think of a possible movie telling the story of U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden? And what are your thoughts on real-life events being turned into movies in general? Great question. As you might have seen my recent review of Fruitvale Station, which is based on a true story of Oscar Grant and his very tragic murder. And I thought that was a great film and an excellent use of telling a movie telling a real story to incredible and very dramatic effect. But I've also seen some movies about real events, which I feel the movie gets lost, and in its effort to kind of cover all the bases, it doesn't have a perspective. I thought Zero Dark 30 suffered from that a little bit. I thought it was more of a documentary than a film with a message or a voice. So I don't know. I think that, of course, obviously the Edward Snowden story is still developing, so we don't really know how that's going to play out. Also, Captain Phillips, an upcoming movie about a real life event. But when I see the trailer for that, I don't know how much of it has been Hollywoodized, and I'll be curious to see. Paul Greengrass is a fantastic director from the second two Bourne films, but I still would be interested to see what kind of spin they put on that. Real life events are very tricky to depict. You have the Steve Jobs movie coming up, and while I'm very happy that I saw the trailer and I felt, oh wow, they're depicting Steve Jobs as kind of like, he wasn't a great, nice guy, even though he was a visionary. I think it's important to show people as they really are. I was talking to my mom actually about the trailer, and she had said that she wasn't happy about it because she felt the movie depicted Steve Jobs as like, oh well, this is just the price of his genius. That's why he's so difficult, and this is just the way he works. And she felt that it was kind of putting him a little too much on a pedestal and really not being, a stark look at someone who, in his personal life, kind of made a mess of things, despite how well his professional life went. So, I think that's very true. You take on a tremendous responsibility when you tell a real life story, and of course, you're always going to upset somebody. But as long as I think you're faithful to the facts and you don't, I really hate it when they don't tell things the way they actually happen. That just drives me crazy, because then why else do it? They say, be careful when they say based on a true story. Hollywood takes so many liberties. But I do feel that it's important these movies have a voice. I don't even know how I feel about the Edward Snowden story at this point. I basically, the story is that he took some contract work for the U.S. government, specifically to find out some stuff. I believe he's the one who leaked the story about them spying on U.S. citizens through phone records and stuff like that, and he fled the country after releasing it. He's kind of like a Julian Assange kind of thing, and right now he's on the run. He's trying to seek asylum in other countries. Again, I think it's important to keep this country safe. I think this is a very difficult discussion about where that line is and if it's crossed. I think as long as the U.S. government, to my knowledge, hasn't abused what they're trying to find out, and they're saying in their defense they have stopped terrorist plots with this kind of coverage. I guess you could call it spying, but I think that's such a loaded word. But so, I just don't know. Living in New York City and someone who was I grew up here, who was here from September 11th, I have, obviously a unique perspective on what's necessary. And also, if Edward Snowden wanted to do this, I feel to some degree, that's fine, but he needs to face, I think he should have an open trial. Or a fair trial. I don't think it's great when the U.S. government just carts people off without due process. But I think if you're gonna, I think it's a little bit cowardly to run, and I think that if I would be interested to hear more about why he did what he did, and I think that he needs to stand up for it and face the consequences. And I think to a large degree, the public he'll be judged in the court of public opinion, and that often sways the real courts. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know if we're going to see an Edward Snowden film, but I'm excited for the Fifth Estate, the WikiLeaks film that's coming out, later this year with Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm very curious to see how that film comes out. So that's today's morning movie news. Thanks for tuning in on a holiday weekend. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back on Monday with another morning movie news. Have a great rest of the holiday weekend if you're here in the United States. And if not, I hope you just have a nice weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye.